All right, so you wanted the dirt on England, not that tourist trap. Yeah, the real deal. The stuff they don't print on those damn postcards. We crawled through Wikipedia for you, and let me tell you, this place is messed up. Seriously, their history makes a football hooligan on a bender look tame. So buckle up for some WTF moments. We've got expert speaker here to break it all down. We're going all the way from how this shithole got its ridiculous name to why the hell everyone's obsessed with tea. Let's cut the crap. Why the hell is it even called England? Were there a bunch of tribes running around back then?
Well, the name, it actually comes from Engleland, which basically translates to land of the Angles. These Angles, well, they were a Germanic tribe, squeezed their way into Britain along with the Saxons and the Jutes, way, way back in the early Middle Ages. Funny thing is, they came from a place called Angel. It's in what's now Germany.
So why England? The Saxons, weren't they a bigger deal?
Yeah, but the term Angli-Saxons started popping up. It means English Saxons. Think they used it to tell the Saxons in Britain apart from the mainland Saxons.
And England just won out.
Pretty much. Kind of like how we call the whole damn country Britain, when it's really just that one big island.
Humans are dumb as rocks.
Yeah.
So before all those Anglo and Saxon asshats showed up, who was hanging out in England? I mean, I know about Stonehenge, but what about between those cavemen and that whole German invasion thing?
We're talking a serious time jump here. Humans, or at least, some kind of ancient ancestor, have been kicking it in England for like 780,000 years. Think Homo antecessor. That's way, way back. We've even got these proto-human bones that are like 500,000 years old. Stonehenge, that came much later, during the Neolithic period, around 2500 BC.
So those Stonehenge dudes were around a long-ass time.
They were part of this beaker culture, named after their fancy-ass drinking vessels. They were pretty advanced for their time, though, smelting copper, bronze, building these crazy huge monuments, farming.
Hold up. Those Stonehenge dudes were like the first hipsters, smelting their bronze, growing their organic kale, building giant rock calendars.
Hey, leave the hipsters out of this.
I'm fine. What happened to them? Did they just, poof, vanish?
Not exactly. They got mixed up with the Celts, came over from Central Europe.
And brought us bagpipes.
Not quite. Those came later. They spoke a language called Brythonic, though. That's actually where the name Britain comes from. Things were pretty chill for a while.
Small tribes, hanging out, drinking mead.
They did some trading with the Romans across the Channel. Then Julius Caesar decided he wanted a piece of the action.
Good old Julius.
Yeah.
Always up for a good conquest. Did the Brits just let him waltz in?
Nah, they fought back. Caesar tried to invade a couple of times in 55 BC, got his ass kicked both times. He managed to stick a puppet king in there.
From one of the tribes?
Yeah, the Trinovantes. But that was about it. Romans didn't actually fully conquer Britain for another 100 years.
So the Brits got screwed in the end.
Pretty much. Romans invaded in 43 AD under Emperor Claudius, and they weren't messing around. Some think they killed 250,000 Brits just during that first takeover. They did bring some cool shit with them, though. Roman law, architecture, plumbing, even silk. Plus they built roads, aqueducts, sewers.
So you're saying they were a force for good?
They at least made it less of a shithole. What about religion? Were they forcing those Roman gods on everyone?
Good point. What was the religious scene back then?
Well, Christianity was making the rounds through the Roman Empire. Britain, too. There's some debate about exactly when it got there. Some think the 1st century, some say later. But by the 4th century, it was definitely a thing.
So the Brits went from worshipping trees to praying to a dude nailed to a cross. Talk about an upgrade.
Well, early British Christianity was a bit different than that Roman version. More Celtic.
Less about the Pope, more about the monks and their mead.
Yeah, something like that. But by the 5th century, the Romans, they had bigger problems. Their empire was falling apart, had to pull back their legions to defend Rome.
Left Britain wide open.
Like a drunken tart at closing time.
And that's when the Anglo-Saxons swooped in.
Bingo. Romans bounced in 410 AD. By the 5th century, you've got the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes pouring in. They weren't all about conquering, though.
Oh, no.
Some were looking for land to farm. Others were just, running from the shit show on the continent. It wasn't like some blitzkrieg invasion. It was more like a slow burn.
So like a barbarian frat party that never ended.
Pretty much. Took a couple of centuries, but they carved up the place into their own kingdoms. Northumbria, Mercia, Wessex, East Anglia, the whole 9 yards. They even brought back their pagan gods.
Christianity got the boot. So much for religious progress.
Not quite. It made a comeback. In 597, Pope Gregory sent this missionary, Augustine, to convert the Anglo-Saxons.
Kent?
Kent. From there, Christianity kind of crept back across England. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, though.
Oh, what now?
There were some clashes between the Roman version and that older Celtic Christian tradition.
Damn, religion, always stirring up shit. So who won that theological brawl?
The Romans. They had this big council in 664, the Synod of Whitby, basically decided their way was the right way. It all boiled down to, well, when to celebrate Easter and what kind of haircut priests should have.
Seriously, people were fighting over haircuts.
Don't underestimate a good haircut. It was really about power, though. The Roman Church, they were way more organized than that Celtic Church, and they were dead set on bringing those Anglo-Saxons back into the fold.
So England, back to being a Christian nation.
More or less, but, well, those Viking bastards were about to crash the party.
Vikings. Oh boy, here we go. How did those lovely Scandinavian folks decide to grace England with their presence? What did they bring? Was it, rape and pillage? Or was there a potluck involved?
All right, so picture this. It's the late 8th century. These peaceful Anglo-Saxons are just chilling, building their monasteries, writing poetry, the usual medieval bullshit. Suddenly, a bunch of longships pop up on the horizon, packed with dudes in horn helmets who are thirsty for blood and treasure.
Sounds like my kind of weekend.
Yeah.
So they just, conquer the whole damn place.
Not right away. They started by raiding coastal settlements, hitting up monasteries, just basically causing mayhem wherever they went.
Typical Viking behavior.
But eventually, they start sticking around, grabbing territories, settling down.
So from raiding parties to real estate moguls, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Those Vikings were ambitious bastards.
They were pretty damn good at adapting. They weren't just mindless barbarians, They had their own complex culture, laws, and they were skilled traders.
So they weren't just about the pillaging.
They even started banging the locals, making little Viking Anglo babies.
A little pillaging, a little procreating. The Viking way.
Pretty much. They ended up controlling a huge chunk of England. It became known as the Danelaw.
The Danelaw. It sounds like a law firm for assholes. So England was basically split in two. Anglo-Saxons down south, Vikings up north.
Yeah, for a while. But the Anglo-Saxons, they weren't going down without a fight.
Oh, I bet.
This King of Wessex, Alfred the Great, managed to push back against the Vikings, defend his kingdom. He's considered the first King of England.
King of England. Sounds fancy.
Even though the country wasn't really unified at that point.
So Alfred the Great, huh? Sound like a badass. Did he, kick those Viking ass-ants out for good?
Not completely. But he laid the groundwork for a unified England. His successors, they kept fighting the Vikings.
And finally,
in the 10th century, England was united under a king named Aethelstan.
one country, one king, one big clusterfuck. So England was finally a real kingdom. End of story, right?
Fuck no. The Vikings weren't done yet. In the late 10th century, a new wave of Scandinavian raids kicked off.
Round two.
This time led by a Danish king, Canute the Great.
Another great king. These guys love giving themselves fancy titles. So what did Canute want? Just another round of smash and grab?
He wanted the whole damn island. And he got it. In 1016, Canute conquered England and became king.
No shit. A Viking king of England.
He was actually a pretty decent ruler, brought peace and prosperity to England. He even ruled Denmark and Norway at the same time.
A Viking empire. Those guys got around. What happened? Did Canute's empire just fade away?
It didn't last. Canute died in 1035. And his sons. Useless pricks. The English throne eventually went back to an Anglo-Saxon king.
Who was?
Edward the Confessor.
So Vikings, finally out of the picture.
Not so fast. Edward died in 1066, without an heir, and everything went to shit.
Figures.
There were a bunch of guys claiming the throne, including a Viking king of Norway, Harald Hardrada.
Hardrada? That's a pretty metal name.
He was a metal dude. Harold invaded England, but got his ass kicked and killed.
Where?
At a battle called Stamford Bridge.
So England was finally safe from those Viking bastards.
For about 5 minutes. While Harold was getting slaughtered up north, another dude was landing in the south, ready to claim the throne.
Who was this?
William, the Duke of Normandy.
In Normandy, isn't that in France?
Yep. But William, he was actually a descendant of Vikings. They'd settled in Normandy a couple centuries earlier.
So a Viking with a French accent.
He had a claim to the English throne through his great-aunt. She was Edward the Confessor's mother.
So England was about to get conquered by French Vikings.
Basically. William defeated the English army at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. And that was that. He crowned himself king, and England was never the same.
The Norman conquest. Sounds like a big fucking deal. What did these Norman French Vikings do to England?
They brought over their language, their culture, their laws. They built castles, cathedrals, monasteries all over the place. They reorganized the government, put in a feudal system.
So no more Anglo-Saxon kings?
Nope. The Normans were here to stay. And they ruled England for the next 300 years.
Damn. From those Beaker people to the Celts, the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, and then the Norman French Vikings, England's family tree is one fucked up mess.
You could say that again?
What about all his kings? Everyone always talks about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. Like, was he just some horny dude who couldn't keep it in his pants?
Well, Henry definitely liked to get laid. But his break from the Catholic Church, it wasn't just about getting his dick wet. It was a power play. He wanted to control the church in England and get his hands on all that sweet cash. Plus, he was pissed off that the Pope wouldn't let him dump his first wife.
Who was?
Catherine of Aragon.
So a horny, power-hungry, vengeful king? Sounds about right. What about England itself? Was it always one country? What about Scotland and Wales?
England and Scotland, they have this long and messy history. They spent centuries fighting, raiding each other, and generally being dicks.
Like siblings. What about Wales? Always part of England.
Not really. England conquered Wales bit by bit, starting in the 13th century, but it wasn't fully absorbed into England until the 16th century. Under, you guessed it, Henry VIII.
That guy was like a dog with a bone when it came to expanding his territory.
He was a busy dude,
Yeah.
conquering Wales, breaking from the church, beheading wives.
So England was finally a united kingdom. England,
Sure.
Scotland, and Wales all under one flag. Happy ending, right?
Hold your horses!
Oh.
We still got the English Civil War, the rise of the British Empire, the Industrial Revolution, 2 world wars.
Jesus Christ. England has been through some shit.
You have no idea.
Well, I guess that's what makes it so interesting. So what about this English Civil War? Was it just a bunch of dudes with stupid haircuts fighting over who got to be king?
It was more complicated than that. It was a showdown between the monarchy and parliament, between those who wanted to keep things the same and those who wanted a more, a more democratic system.
And of course, religion had to get involved.
There was a whole lot of religious bullshit thrown in for good measure.
Always with the damn religion. So who won?
Parliament. They kicked the royalist asses, chopped off King Charles I's head.
They cut off the king's head. Damn, that's hardcore.
They started a republic called the Commonwealth.
So England was a republic, like the United States.
Kind of, but it didn't last. After a decade of Puritan rule under Oliver Cromwell, they brought back the monarchy in 1660.
Back to square one. Kings, queens, the whole 9 yards.
Yep, but things are different. The monarchy, it wasn't all powerful anymore. Parliament had flexed its muscles and England was on its way to becoming a constitutional monarchy.
Okay, so we've got a United Kingdom, a civil war, a quickie with republicanism, and the monarchy's back. What's next in this Shakespearean shit show? Don't tell me. Let me guess. More fucked up shit.
You're catching on. Next up, we've got the Glorious Revolution, the birth of the British Empire, and a whole lot of global conquest.
Oh, boy. Here we go again. All right, so last time we left off with England becoming this constitutional monarchy thing. Kind of boring, if you ask me. What happened next? Did they just sit around sipping tea and conquering half the world?
Pretty much. The late 17th and 18th centuries were a wild time for England. The Glorious Revolution back in 1688 really cemented Parliament's power, brought some stability, gave England the chance to focus on, well, expanding their trade and influence overseas.
And that led to the birth of the British Empire.
Exactly.
The British Empire, the OG global superpower. How did this tiny little island become like the biggest empire the world had ever seen?
Well, a few things happened, all at the right time. They had a strong navy, their economy was booming, and they were thirsty for new markets and resources. Plus, they had this talent for exploiting other countries' weaknesses.
Classic empire move. Divide and conquer. So what do they do with this shiny new empire besides stealing everything that wasn't nailed down?
Well, they did plenty of that. But there were also some, positive changes. They spread the English language, their culture. They introduced new technologies, ideas.
Hold up. Are you saying the British Empire was a force for good?
I'm saying it was complicated. There were good sides and bad sides. On one hand, you've got exploitation, racism, violence, all that shit that comes with colonialism. But on the other hand, there were also some advancements in science, medicine, education. It's not black and white.
Yeah, because every empire has blood on its hands.
Mhm.
So what about England itself? How did all this empire building affect the folks back home?
Well, it made England incredibly wealthy, powerful, and it led to the Industrial Revolution, which transformed the country, took them from a bunch of farmers to, like, an industrial powerhouse.
So while they were out conquering the world, England was busy inventing the modern world.
Yeah, pretty much. They were at the forefront of new technology, steam engines, factories, mass production. They were also pushing for social and political reforms like, abolishing slavery, expanding voting rights, improving working conditions.
Sounds like a lot of change.
Yeah.
Everyone on board with all that.
Of course not. There was a lot of resistance, especially from the rich folks, the landowners.
Give years.
And you also had these social movements popping up, demanding more equality, justice. It was a time of, upheaval, but also progress.
Progress always comes at a price.
Yeah.
So what happened to the British Empire? Did it just, fade away?
It pretty much imploded after World War II. The war bankrupted Britain. Their colonies started demanding independence. In the 1960s, most of the British Empire was gone.
So from global superpower to a rainy little island with bad food.
Hey, the food's not that bad. But yeah, England's definitely not the top dog they used to be.
So what's England like today? Besides being obsessed with the royals and drinking tea, I mean.
England today, it's a diverse, multicultural society, dealing with a lot of the same problems as, other developed countries. Economic inequality, social divisions, political bullshit. They're also dealing with the fallout from Brexit.
Brexit. That's a whole other can of worms. So what's next for England? Will they ever get their shit together?
That's the million-dollar question. England has this long, complicated history. It's impossible to say what the hell will happen next.
Well, that's a relief. I don't think I could handle another episode about a country that's actually got its shit together.
Me neither.
So there you have it, folks. England, a country built on blood, booze, and some seriously questionable decisions. But hey, at least they gave us Shakespeare, the Beatles, and a whole lot of history to make fun of. So go explore this messed up little island. See for yourself. And hey, if you find any dirt on the royals, you know where to find us. Peace out.